Hey guys, so welcome back. I wanted to talk a little bit today about how I just literally quit everything. And I'm not here to give anybody advice on what they should do. I'm just here to share literally my personal experience and what led me to just essentially quitting everything. I lost my dad in 2020. And for those who know, they know that was like around COVID times. So that was a very stressful time period for a lot of people, right? Um, and losing a family member during that time, that definitely is heartbreaking. And my heart goes out to all of the people who lost someone, not just during that time, but someone very close to them. As far as my personal journey, that losing my dad completely changed my perspective on situations and the trajectory of my entire life. And the reason being is because my dad was literally my role model, right? For everything. Like, he was the master planner, the voice of reason. He did everything by the book. I'm talking about, 401k, saving, being loyal to a job for 30 plus years, just all of the things that we are taught to do in order to have a successful life. And he passed away literally at the age of 63, young, just a few years shy of retiring. And he didn't die from COVID, but he died from a very long battle with cancer. And obviously that completely turned his world upside down because all of his hard work, all of the saving, everything was because of, that mindset of eventually I will get to enjoy my retirement. Um, and during that time, obviously losing someone close, you go through that grieving process. And during that process, you start to look at life very differently, right? Like, some people will say life is too short. Some people will say, we wait so long to live. And in my mindset, even though I was not prepared to lose my job or quit my job, there were other things that happened, alongside of my dad passing. So after, he passed away, I found out that my spouse was cheating. And not only was he cheating, but, he was cheating, while my dad was sick, after my dad passed away. So all of those things really made me lean more into spirituality. And I started to take a very hard look at my life and ask myself some serious questions. Am I living in a way that's authentic to me? Am I living in a way that brings me joy? Um, you know, if I keep living at this capacity, where will my life be 5 years from now, 10 years from now? And so I did what most people do. You move through it, right? Like, you keep pushing through, pushing through. And I did that until I could not push through any longer. So navigating, grieving my dad, and then grieving a spouse that I spent roughly 11 years with, to still trying to handle my responsibilities, show up for people in a way that I needed to, still be all of the things, right? Planning for retirement, doing all of the things that we are taught to do, which all led me to burnout. I got to a certain level of exhaustion where I just could not go on any further. And I still tried to, work the job that I had. I had a great paying job. I was making about six figures a year. I was working for a software company that had a ton of flexibility, which was nice because I was working from home. There were some times where things got stressful just because if you've ever worked for a software company, you know that there are quarter ends that are that can be very stressful just because we're trying to close a lot of business or contracts. Uh, and personally, I was working with attorneys, so, multiple different personalities. So having to navigate that, and just being a cog really in the wheel, because essentially the company that I worked for, they were not looking for people who were innovative or dynamic or brought any, great ideas to the table. They were looking for people that were going to be on a hamster wheel, maintain your silence, and just do what you are told. And that's it. And while that may work for a certain period of time, eventually you get to a place where you're just like, okay, this is not really aligned with me or my vision for my life or where I would like to go. And I think that causes somewhat of an internal stress that you have to deal with because your life is turning out in a way that you really didn't expect. Like it's almost like it's become a point where you just wake up, you rest, and you repeat. You do the same thing over and over and over again. And you can't lean into your authenticity because people just want you to be like a robot, not be able to think for yourself, just do what you are essentially told. And the breaking point for me is obviously the more I ignored that nagging voice inside of me, telling me to quit, telling me to focus on me and just give myself a break, led me not only to burnout, but it led me to a breaking point because that burnout now turned to like physical sickness that I was dealing with. And it was almost like God was telling me, okay, what is it going to take for you to just quit? Quit and take the time that you need for yourself. And so I finally, started to look at my finances. And I'm a lot like my dad, where I, planned, I saved my money. I rarely was enjoying life. So I had a backup plan to the backup plan to the backup plan. But for some reason, I just could not push myself to take the time that I needed to just take a break for myself. It took extreme measures for me to finally give up on everything. Like literally, I mean, I lost my dad, literally my best friend. My marriage fell apart. I led myself to burnout by trying to push through all of the things. The burnout led to, physical illness. And so I finally said, okay, enough is enough. Enough is enough. I am going to take time for me. And I quit. I quit. I quit everything. And that led me to quitting situations and also people that were no longer good for me, meaning they were not healthy for me, because you know when you know, right? Like sometimes things, people, and situations just no longer align with your journey. And the interesting part of it, though, is even when a job no longer aligns with us or our journey, we still try to push through. We still try to push through. And that's literally my story. And I will have a part two to this story, but I literally, like, I quit everything. I quit my job. I quit people. I quit entertaining things that were draining me. I quit, bad habits, like constantly scrolling on social media or comparing my life to other people. I am finally living in a way that's more authentic to me and who I am. And I am going to take a break as long as medically necessary, spiritually necessary, mentally necessary. Because for once in my life, I feel like I'm finally taking control of how I want to live, the type of person that I want to be, and how I want to show up in life. And I am so appreciative and grateful for the journey because I am so excited for the first time and passionate about where it is leading me. And thank you so much for listening. And if you resonate with this video or if you're going through anything similar, please comment down below. I'd love to hear from you. Okay, thanks. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.